and welcome back to my videos that I do about autism. If you don't know, I'm Holly and I am autistic and do weekly videos on a Sunday about autism. This video today is going to be all about early signs of autism in all children. Sometimes I do specific to girls or whatnot, but this is kind of across the board early autism signs in children, some of which I talked about quite a lot, some of which aren't. I have done a video about my childhood traits. If you want to go look at that, it was the first video that I put out. This isn't going to be specific to me, it's going to be just autism signs across the board. Obviously, just saying, all children are different, therefore all autistic children are also different. You are not going to find two autistic children with the same brain, with the same traits, etc. These are just some of the traits that I have. Oh, before I get into that, go follow me on TikTok and Instagram. TikTok is where I post lots of short videos, autism related videos, or mental health related videos, etc. And on Instagram I put Q&As up all about autism related, and some of which I answer questions in my videos on my channel. So yeah, I will leave the link in the description and I will put my username up on the screen. So yeah, anyway, as I was saying, sign number 1, specific placing of things in a house. So for example, maybe like specific order of like chairs, so a certain chair might have to be in a certain place, or an autistic child might always have to sit in the same place, in the same chair, or toys. Obviously, if your child plays with toys, it might have specific order that the toys must be in, or specific place, or yeah, each thing a child may be quite obsessed with specific placing of things in a house. Yeah, I think I've said enough said. I hope you understand that point. Number 2, meltdowns. Meltdowns are not tantrums. I just want to get this away, because children do have tantrums. Most children do have tantrums. A way of kind of identifying the two is a tantrum is something that is done when a child can explain why they are acting a certain way, whereas a meltdown, this is specific to me, this is what I have found, a meltdown is something I cannot control and I cannot explain why I am doing the things that I'm doing. I can kind of understand a little bit of the background why, but it can be a number of things can cause a meltdown for me, and it's very hard for me to pinpoint why. It's kind of just a complete overload of everything, whether it's sensory overload, which I will get onto, some change. Sometimes I cannot explain why the meltdown is happening. It is like a burst of energy that needs to leave my body. That is what a meltdown is to me, and it is obviously different to a tantrum. And another way of maybe spotting the difference is if the child is normally quite well behaved. This was the case for me. I was very, very well behaved child, therefore a meltdown to me was quite unusual. My mum knew that my child doesn't usually act like this. Something might be a bit different about me, because it was very unusual behaviour. The things I was having a meltdown about was quite unusual things, where my mum, like if my mum told me one thing and then went back on it, I would have a meltdown about that. That was a very common thing for me as a child. And my mum started, at first she thought, why is she acting like this? She's being quite spoiled or something like that, or I was being naughty. But eventually she kind of put 2 and 2 together and saw a pattern, and I think that is very important to try and identify a pattern going on that is causing the meltdowns. Okay, enough said. Sign number 3, if you notice that your child is very specific about the way things are cooked. If something is cooked once and your child then wants it to be cooked the same way over and over again, like it has to be the same each time it's cooked, so maybe a specific placing of food on a plate, maybe things not touching, maybe things being cooked the same way or tasting the same as what it had tasted before, so everything being cooked the same way, or even just repetitive food patterns, eating the same thing. That is an autistic trait. I would get quite upset if not all foods, but some of my foods had to all be separate. It would cause me a meltdown. Had the food not straight away, but it would cause a meltdown if food were touching on my plate, or if it was different. So if I usually have, let's say for example, bacon pasta sweet corn, if it was then made with peas, it would have caused an issue for me. I'm not going to say it automatically caused a meltdown because it didn't automatically, but if things, like I said, a number of things go into me having a meltdown, and it's never normally one thing. So if there was some sensory overload going on, as well as the food, as well as maybe change happening, it can all be. And it can also be a case of my mum saying, you've got to eat it, and then I would then say, no, I can't eat it. Even as a child, a young child, I would be quite calm and just say, I can't eat it. And obviously my mum wouldn't understand why, and it would cause an argument, and then eventually cause a meltdown, to the point I was, in my meltdown, it wasn't a case of just kicking off. It was a case of stimming, shaking uncontrollably, panting. Obviously I'd throw things, I'd get quite aggressive. It wasn't a case of me just kicking off. There was a number of things that happened in my meltdown to where it was quite unusual behaviour, as I've just explained. Okay, so number 4, I think we're on number 4. Sensory issues. As I've just explained with food, that can also be a sensory issue for me. Textures of certain foods, textures of certain clothes. I don't like things touching my skin. I've always been like that up to this current age. However, as a child, I would just flat out refuse to wear certain things. So like certain clothes, tights, socks have always been an issue. Tight jeans have been an issue. I wouldn't wear jeans. I'd constantly going out in skirts, like flowy skirts, things like that. I couldn't wear tights. I was very weird about certain clothes touching me and how that felt on my skin, certain textures of foods. I was extremely sensitive to anything spicy. I remember one example being is when I was having Sunday dinner. My mum gave me some mashed potato from her plate, and it had a bit of mustard on it. Well, it was literally like 1,000 wasps had stung me in my mouth. It felt horrible. I was screaming, crying. It was literally like I'd been in the worst pain in my life. I was about 5, 6, and no, wasn't for me. Sensory issues can also be noise, very sensitive to noise. I am deaf. It's never been an issue for me, or if it has, I could just take my hearing aids out. Noise, it's not an issue for me. It would be in a sensory overload situation. I have done a video on sensory overload, so I'll link it up here. You might learn some stuff about sensory overload, but sensory overload to me is quite literally an overload of the senses. So although a noise wouldn't start a sensory overload, had maybe something really itchy being on my skin, then there was some noise coming into it, like a really loud noise, I felt a bit sticky, all of that would then cause a sensory overload, then a meltdown. So, which I've explained in a lot more detail on the video, so you should definitely go check that out if you're interested in sensory issues, sensory overload, etc. The next point, so number 5, this might be me slightly older, but then at the same time it wasn't for me because I was quite young, always wanting to know times for things. So times that we're gonna go somewhere, times that someone's coming over. I was quite young when I learned how to tell the time. I always wanted to know when things were happening in the day. So if your child constantly asks questions like, when is this going to happen? What time is this going to happen? How long things are going to happen for? Maybe I feel like this could still happen even if your child doesn't know the specific time of things. They just kind of want to know basically a schedule of how the day is going to plan out. So yeah, that's another autism sign. Number 6. Okay, so this is something that I did have as a child, and when you're autistic, sometimes your brain doesn't send out signals to tell your body that it needs to do something. For example, eat, or go to the toilet, or when you're full, things like that. Yeah, I have had these problems growing up. I still have problems now when I'm full. My brain doesn't send out signals to tell me when I'm full or when to go to the toilet. However, I'm older now. I put reminders into my phone to remind me to go to the toilet. But it has caused severe bowel problems as a child. So obviously, yeah, that is a sign of autism, that if your body doesn't send out signals. Number 7, stimming and hand flapping, specifically hand flapping for me. I used to stim a lot as a child in public. I still stim now, but not in public. But obviously as a child I had no like social awareness. I didn't know what to or what. And the thing is, right, stimming is not a bad thing to do in public. Absolutely not. However, I am very socially aware, and I think that seems to be quite a big thing in autism in girls. But I am very socially aware, and I don't stim in public because I can control my stimming. However, if your child cannot control it, it is not a thing that you need to stop. I just want to put that out there, that stimming is not a bad thing. I thought I was going to be bullied in school. I wanted people to like me, and I thought if I stimmed in public, this wasn't going to be the issue at all. But I say I don't stim in public now. I still do signs of stimming in public, just more like socially acceptable stims, if you get what I mean. I'm going to do a proper video on stimming because it is something I want to go into more depth about. But when I say hand flapping, when I was younger, I would hand flap talking to sticks. I'd usually be in my own world. I'd be in imaginary friends, etc. And whilst I was like talking to myself or whatever in the playground at school, like primary school, I'd be like waving sticks around, hand flapping, shaking things. I did it on holiday. So yeah, that is definitely something to look out for in a child who may be autistic. That's what I did. That is a very common sign of autism. Like imaginary friends is also another very common sign. But a lot of children do have imaginary friends, so I wouldn't say that is obviously. You shouldn't be looking at just one of sign of autism, because a lot of children may have one of these signs or a couple of these signs. It's kind of more like, and I'm not saying you have to have all these specific signs. There's so many. I am not listing them all in this video, so don't just look at my video. Maybe look at some other videos or more research online. So yeah. I just think it'll always be quite nice to hear it from an actual autistic person rather than someone that has just done research, because it's coming from someone who's actually experienced all these things. And yeah, there you go. Extreme emotions. So extreme excitement, heightened emotions. I mean, like more emotions that are heightened. Extreme when you're excited, you're very excited. When you're sad, you're very sad. Crying uncontrollably. Yeah, so extreme heightened emotions is definitely a sign of autism, whether that's early, whether it's late. I think it is more shown when you're early because it's less hidden when in an early age. Obviously, because your child doesn't have much, any children don't have much social awareness, so obviously they show more signs of their emotions than what you do when you're older. A lot of teenagers tend to hide their emotions, so the extreme emotions are still there, it's just kind of controlled a little bit more. Another thing is limited eye contact, or I'm also going to put this in, extreme eye contact. Eye contact is something that I subconsciously don't realise I'm not giving eye contact. So for some autistic people, they purposely don't give eye contact because they find it uncomfortable. That isn't the case for me. I just don't give it. However, I do give it, because I am also deaf, so I lip read, so it does sometimes look like I'm giving eye contact. So when I'm not giving eye contact, it's a sign to know that I'm really just not listening to what you're saying, because I'm not lip reading. So there you go. There you go. I've just completely exposed myself, but there you go. If you know me and I'm not giving you eye contact, I'm really just not listening to what you're saying, because I have to lip read to know what people are saying. It's a massive thing for me. So yeah, but also extreme eye contact. So staring is also another autism sign, like not knowing, because they are less socially aware, which I will come on to. I've kind of mentioned that quite a lot, but they give extreme eye contact, some autistic children. I didn't, as I've just explained. I just automatically don't. I noticed that in pictures, I don't look at the camera. I've noticed that editing my YouTube video, I'm giving a lot of eye contact right now because I'm thinking about it, but yeah, when I'm editing my YouTube videos, I notice that I do look away quite a lot. I don't look at the camera. I don't look at the camera in photos. And sometimes when I'm having a conversation and I zone out, because that is another autism sign for me, I zone out of conversations a lot if I get bored. I don't give eye contact then, I zone out, obviously. So yeah, and when I meet new people, I don't tend to give eye contact. And that's all of these things is what I've been told off other people, because I didn't realise I'm doing it. Okay, so next thing. If your child doesn't smile back when you smile at them, so they don't like read your emotions very well, facial expressions, they don't read your facial expressions very well. So if they smiled at you and you didn't smile back, I don't think this was a trait of mine. I always feel like I've never had a problem with facial expressions. I can always kind of tell how someone is feeling by the face, not by the eyes though. That is something I'm not very good at. I didn't even realise neurotypical people could do this, but apparently you can tell how someone is feeling by looking at their eyes. I can't do that. But I can tell how someone's feeling by looking at the face. Yeah. Next one, extremely good memory. Not short-term memory or tasks, verbal tasks. If someone was to give out a list of tasks on a piece of paper, a lot of autistic people are absolutely fine with that. They can remember it very well. But if you were to give out tasks verbally, no. A lot of autistic people have said that they can't deal with that. However, autistic people do have extremely good memory, long-term memories. I am also one of those people. In primary school, bear in mind I didn't have very many friends, I barely spoke to anyone. I knew everybody's birthday, 30 birthdays in my class. I even know to this day, I've not spoke to half of them, I literally can remember at least 10 birthdays. Like dates and the month and everything. I'm very, very good at birthdays. Well, if I pay much attention. I don't know why I subconsciously decided to learn all the birthdays in my class when I wasn't even friends with any of them, but I did. And I can remember things from when I was extremely young, like extremely young. I can remember things from a holiday when I was just turned 2. I can remember what my first bedroom looked like. There's no pictures of my first bedroom, but I remember what my first bedroom looked like, and I was about 2 when I came out of that room. Okay, so next trait. Also, yeah, song lyrics is also something that autistic people are very, very good at learning. I am not one of those autistic people because I'm deaf and I can't actually hear the song lyrics. So maybe if I could, I might have a chance, but no. But it is, a lot of autistic people are very, very good at song lyrics and very, very good at music, piano, guitar, very good at remembering things like that. Friendships. Okay, so a lot of autistic children, me being one of them, was very disinterested in meeting friends, playing with friends. I would much rather play on my own. I wasn't bothered by any of this. I never got invited to parties. I didn't care. I used to go to the play area with some of my mum's friends' children, and I never played with them. I was definitely very close friends with them and everything, and had I been at home, I'd play with them maybe, but I'd always play on my own in play areas and slides, bobbles, always playing on my own, talking to myself, things like that. But that wasn't really my point. My point was, if they do have friends, autistic people may seem very selfish in friendships. So what I mean by selfish, I mean like they only want to do what they want to do. So I was very stubborn, and if it would come to a film, it had to be a film I wanted to watch, always a film that I've watched before. I could never let the other child choose what film to watch on the telly. It has to be my film. Or I'd always say this thing like, oh, we'll watch my film first and then we'll watch yours, and then we'd watch my film and then I wouldn't watch theirs. That was a very common thing I used to do. And what I mean by selfish, again, is sharing has always been a massive issue for me, which was always put down for me being an only child, which I really don't think that's the case whatsoever. Autistic people do struggle to share and take turns, because I was very like, it's mine, like it's my thing, like if you wanted it then you get it. Like, it's not, I remember once I won something on a slot machine at, like, you know, the amusement parks, and I won these diamonds, and my friend didn't win anything and I won 2, and my mum said give the other diamond to her because, like, it was more fair, and I was like, no, because I won it, like, it's mine. Do you know what I mean? Whereas someone else, and maybe a neurotypical child, might be more likely to give them the diamond. No, it wasn't going to happen like that for me. And I was the same with food. I'm very territorial over my food. Still am to this day. I really struggle with sharing. So yeah, that is a very common autism trait because it's the way our mind kind of works. No understanding or limited understanding of social constructs. So for example, for me, I had no filter whatsoever. A lot of children don't have much filter. This is a child thing, not just an autistic thing. This is a child thing, however, it is more obvious in a child who is autistic. I don't know how to filter myself in certain situations, so I would say the same thing to each person. So you know how you kind of filter yourself, you don't say the same thing in front of your parents to what you would do your friends at school. I wasn't like that at all. I would say the same. I don't filter myself in different surroundings. I also am extremely honest. So if someone said, do you like the food? I would be very honest, and if I didn't like it, and say, no, I don't. And I think, I to this day, I think that this is an excellent autism trait, because it then causes the person not to make the same food again and you not to dislike it. Like, I understand you not trying to hurt their feelings, but if it really was awful food, then you're really saving it in the long run, because they could be cooking this awful food for other people that maybe really won't like it. And I do get that everyone has different taste buds and etc, but what if it really just was awful? So yeah, I think it's great being honest. I think it's one of my favourite autism traits. Again, when I mean no meaning of social construct, I would just walk around naked, and I wouldn't understand why not to walk around naked. It was my body, and I didn't understand why I needed to wear clothes, because again, I didn't have much social construct. That creaking noise is really getting on my nerves. It's my chair, by the way. Okay, so this is kind of another thing. A lot of autistic people may have no sense of fear. So they maybe seem completely fearless. I was one of these children. I was quite fearless when it came to things. I still am quite fearless. When I say my biggest fear is social situations and awkward silences, that is not a very common fear. I am not afraid of things that normal people are afraid of, like heights or bugs or spiders or whatnot. I'm not afraid of these things. I'm very daring, and I don't get afraid. And this is very common. Another thing is autistic people may be overly sensitive, or like not sensitive at all to pain, or not feel pain at all. I was very overly sensitive to pain. I still am. I can't deal with some, no, this is different. Some pains I'm very overly sensitive to, some pains I'm not. Some autistic people don't feel pain. Some autistic people feel a lot of pain, so feel pain more intensely, which kind of comes into the previous thing about heightened emotion and heightened feeling, heightened senses. That's what I meant to say earlier on in the video about senses and sensory overload and things. We have very, very, very heightened senses, which is why we have problems with clothes and problems with taste and texture, because we feel things more intensely. Okay, so another thing is something that I did struggle with as a child, and that is self-injury. A lot of autistic people may do this in a meltdown situation. I did. I used to like bang my head against the wall, I'm just going to say it, in a meltdown or in a situation. It was very common at school when I did it. I used to bite myself. I was very, yeah, it's extremely common in autistic children to do this, mostly in sensory overload situations. If change happened in social situations. School for me was an extreme social environment that I hated. I couldn't deal with school. I'm gonna do a massive video on school because I think it's something that needs to be talked about, and it is something that a lot of autistic people do struggle with. I do want to do a video about that, and I want to do a video about like peers and children in your class and things like that. So if you want to watch these videos, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Repetitive movements, repetitive language, just repetitive. Repetitive is in like with obsessions, you may be very fixated on one thing and only this one thing. Or repetitive movements, so like stimming is a very repetitive movement. That is what stimming is. It is a repetitive movement. Repetitive with what you say, so talking about the same thing, saying certain words. It was a lot when I was a child. I did say things repetitively a lot and talk about the same things and have the same special interest, which is another thing. As a child I watched the same thing over and over again, same films, same TV shows. I only watched certain things, Peppa Pig, Ben and Hollie's Little Kingdom. I used to watch the same TV shows over and over again at the same time every day. I played with the same toys. That's if I played with toys. You know what, I'm not going to say I played with the same toys because I didn't play with toys, which is another autistic childhood sign, not playing with toys. Maybe instead lining up the toys in an orderly fashion. All my you walk into my room, it's like a museum. Things are so straight. Mum bought me a Slovenian family set and it was all in specific movements, and if it knocked over I had to move it back straight away. It caused me quite a lot of distress with this Slovenian family kit because there's a lot of pieces or a lot of knocks overs, there's a lot of moving about, and no. All my dolls would be up straight, hair done straight, not to be touched. I would kind of imagine the dolls moving in my head and imagining playing with the dolls and kind of stimming and like talking to myself with the dolls, but not actually moving them and not actually playing interactively with them. Again, this kind of comes into my first point with order of things in the house, having a certain order for toys, maybe colour-coded books or this is a bit old obviously, alphabetical books, or very organised with toys. And yeah, there is so many more traits, and I might do another video on this because there's so many things that I want to put into another video, but this video is extremely long already, so I'm going to end it here. If you enjoyed it, please like it, and if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel. And yeah, I hope you have a nice week. See you next Sunday. Bye.